Many people, including that Professor Zhang of predictive history, they say that World War III has already started. Do you look at it that way? Do you see this turning into World War III?
Yeah, increasingly, yes.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think we can announce World War III yet, but it sure has a feel that that's where we're heading. That this Western hegemon is not going to go down without a fight, and it's been so aggressive against all those that try to stand up to maintain their sovereignty, that eventually the real, the those powers, like namely the real superpowers that oppose it, Russia and China, they have behaved very cautiously. They have to be honest, to a great extent have appeased the Americans. But at some point, they just may realize that we can't do that anymore. And that may end up being an effect of this war. It's just that you may see a firming up of positions in both Russia and China. Again, we've seen Russia has allowed the U.S. to essentially conduct operations on its, pre-2014 territory in various ways, right? We know the missile strikes, and then there are these probably CIA aided drone strikes and so on and so forth. And who knows about these assassinations? But I think the Russians are right to at least suspect, and maybe they have firm knowledge of CIA and MI6 involvement in these. They have so far not responded in kind, but it may be that, that this war will tell them that, yeah, you don't negotiate with these people. They're out to get us, and that we have to fight back. That's the only thing. And then, who knows? I think that, again, it's that specter of World War III that has kept Russia from responding in kind. To say, like, yeah, we have a right to retaliate, but if we do we have World War III on our hands? Let's just hope that they come to their senses. But at some point, they're going to conclude they're not going to come to their senses, and we just have to fight it out, and we may have World War III on our hands.
Okay, well, that's terrifying. The one thing that maybe gives me hope that we won't have World War III is just the weakness of the Western hegemon. Like, I don't think we have the ability to really have a World War III. Like, if we do, who are going to be the sides? Like, what we're seeing right now happen with the Western hegemon is that all of its so-called allies and its friends don't really have anything, don't have any power. These are just places that hold some American weapons and some American troops maybe. And what we're seeing is that we're having to say, hey, everybody, that we gave you some things, our defense, actually give it all back to us now. We need it now, right here in this location.
Right.
And they then leaving them with nothing. They have no military industrial complex themselves. None of these countries have a military industrial complex. And the United States has a 1980s military industrial complex. It would have been, it would have been so great. Back in the 80s and the 90s, we could have just steamed on in, but we don't have a military industrial complex to counter what Russia does, what China does, what Iran does. And none of these NATO countries do either, because they abdicated their own MIC to us. They just said, we'll just stick with the top dog and we'll always be on top. And then we found out, the top dog was resting on his laurels too long and his stuff doesn't work too well. And they're massively in debt and they have huge problems. So how can this really work? Like, if it works out, it's like the Western hegemon side doesn't even have the capacity. We were just talking about this war in Iran, that maybe we can do it a week, 2 weeks. How do we expect to do a world war if we can't even handle Iran in 2 weeks? If we'll run 2 weeks with Iran, we're out. Where would we get the backup from? How would this even happen?
Yeah. Well, it's amazing that they're attempting this again after the experience in the Red Sea. Remember, that was a 7-week war. And in the end, they decided, we went in. I remember all the chest thumping ahead of time, right? It's like, Sleepy Joe Biden, those, the Democrats, they don't know how to wage a war. They're woke and they're not real warriors. We are, and we're going to teach the Houthis a lesson. 7 weeks later, it's like, okay. And they were out of the Red Sea. That's so. But they don't seem to have learned it. I mean, it just seems again, they're thumping their chests again. Hegseth and Trump is saying everything is going so wonderfully, and they're absolutely obliterating everything in sight, and they're way ahead of where they thought they would be. And he probably really believes it. I don't know with Trump, but again, I think sometimes the most effective liars are the ones that believe their own lies, and I think that maybe describes Trump in many cases. So yeah, there is still this hubris, this kind of the sense that it's we are the hegemon, we are the hyperpower, nobody can even approach us. This is the language that Trump uses openly, but let's remember Biden did too. Is that we are, right?
But people understand that just saying it doesn't make it real anymore. People can see it, just like we were saying in the beginning. All these bases being wiped out, that's just a huge blow to American power. It's like, okay, well, you guys actually, it seems like $200,000 worth of drones can just wipe out this multi-billion-dollar base that we paid for here.
Right. Yeah, well, you'd hope, we've been hoping for reality to win. Remember, I mean, we've been talking about the Ukraine war for years now. And you're saying, sometimes just there's this hope that at some point reality will break through, but we just don't see a sign of it. I mean, it's just like this, their vanity knows no bounds, and the sense of supremacy knows no bounds. If something goes wrong, it's always somebody's fault, but it can't be that we are not all powerful. Yeah. We'll see. Well, I know it's going to be hard in this case. But it is a very, we're looking at two things going on here, on the U.S. side. Okay, well, three things. Okay, there are the physical constraints as they start to use up their precision-guided munitions, as air defense runs out. This is all going to have an impact on their ability to wage war there against Iran. But then the other thing is, domestic opinion. I mean, he went into this war without anything close to a convincing, argument. He's been all over the map, and so many of the things that he says as justifications for this war are just patently absurd. So the polls show it. This war is not supported by the American people. People who are opposed to it outnumber those who support it 2-1. That's not a good way to enter into a war. And then you're seeing already, maybe even more importantly, because quite often our leaders just don't really care what people think, unfortunately, at least in the short run. But many of the elites, politicians, at least on the Democratic side, are starting to very openly question this war. Again, they should have made loud noises ahead of time, but now that they're seeing how badly it's going and they're seeing the polls, they're coming out against the war. And we're getting leaks, and we're getting, again, these establishment media, even the Wall Street Journal, which has always been very, very hawkish, is also questioning this war. So this is something that that Trump has to deal with, and that's only going to grow over time. On the other side, though, is that, okay, if he calls it off and he clearly hasn't attained his objectives, and the U.S. bases suffer lots of damage, Israel suffers a lot of damage, where is he? It's just then we have the Zelensky logic. That's the problem. Okay, we went in and we committed ourselves to this foolish war. It didn't work out. But if we admit it now, then everybody sees us for a fool. So we have to keep on going. That's the other thing. So let's just, between all these different factors here, at some point, we just hope that, okay, the physical constraints and the domestic pressure will finally force Trump's hand, and he'll call it off. And of course, he'll try to put a good face on it and claim that, okay, yeah, we achieved incredible things, like we've never seen in history before or something. He'll say something like that, but it won't convince anybody.
Right. I don't
maybe
think
not even his base, which
it
must be one thing that we have to admit right now is like among Republicans, there's 85% support for the war. That's where all the support for the war is. Among independents and Democrats, virtually None.
Let's check what that is next
Yeah,
week. I have a
exactly.
feeling.
Because, right, I think that's right. Because maybe they believe that that Trump is great. He has this great plan. It'll be over in 2 weeks and it'll be the most amazing thing in history. And if we get into 2 months and things are getting worse, I think you'll see that evaporate.
Right. Yeah. People start coming back in body bags. I think the people will know who to be upset at. Like, this was not necessary for us at all.
Right.
Now we've gone into this thing. Wait, is there a chance? I don't think we can expect Trump to call it off, even if it's becoming increasingly unpopular. It seems like it seems like Laura Loomer just is like his cheerleader, and she's got his phone number, and it seems like she can just call him, just tell how great he's doing. And I see the White House putting out videos of just Iranians celebrating around the world and just like how great we are and we're liberated. And I think Trump is just very susceptible to that. He's surrounded himself with people that are telling him things that what he wants to hear. He doesn't care about the 80% of the population that despise what he's doing. And so he just has that bubble. And then then it becomes that these are just the people he cares about. And he says, screw everybody else. They're haters. I think that's what we're looking at. So I think we got to hope for an impeachment. Right. I mean, this was an illegal war, incredibly unpopular. I mean, he kidnapped a sitting sovereign leader in Venezuela as well. I mean, that's a huge, huge deal. I mean, all these tariffs, like, he's just been a disaster. Like, if there's any reason to impeach somebody, it's because of this. We are walking into, we're saying World War III. Like, this is one of the reasons he got elected. He said, if you stick with, the Democrats, you want World War III? Look where you got us, Trump. He needs to go. People need he needs to be impeached. Right. And what we're saying that, like, the U.S. doesn't have the conventional ability to wage this war. We will run out of munitions in a couple of weeks. Then we come up to this nuclear threshold really quick. And then can it be that we live in a country that we can say that somehow we are a republic or a liberal democracy when one man could declare an illegal war and then use a nuclear weapon? Like, what is this? The illusion of any idea that we have some type of democratic system also goes out the window, right? It's like, okay, well, clearly you guys just, all the power relies on the executive. You have a king. That's what you have, right? That's what that is. You're not supposed to. We already are in that situation. Just the fact that we're able to launch this war without any congressional approval.
Yeah, no, it's true. He's just made no effort to even, let's say,
notify,
impose the fig leaf of legality on this war. That's you could say in the past it's there was some effort to follow procedure and to kind of create an aura of legality, but that's just not even true here. He doesn't care about laws or anything, the Constitution. It's just that he's the God Emperor and he does what he wants. It's so. Yeah, but that will get him in trouble with Congress. I think it's like the Democrats and others were waiting. Again, they're cowards, so they cheered it ahead of time. But then as they see that, wait a second, this isn't going very well, they'll move in for the kill, and they may have Republicans join them. At some point, if this war, follows the trajectory that we expect it to follow. And it's okay. Yeah, he's within a bubble, as you're saying. I think that's true. He's being praised. I just constantly, he's surrounded by sycophants. I was just watching the press conference he had with Chancellor Merz. That occurred yesterday, and Merz was such a sycophant too. All the European leaders. It's not just the people that he's appointed, that's his staff and whatever, but it's just like all these leaders that have chosen, that are part of the West. They all behave. They all praise him. They've decided that that's the way they're going to treat him. And then when one person like Pedro Sanchez of Spain, right, actually dares to criticize him, and I pointed out, I felt it was kind of a mealy-mouthed criticism, but at least he did it, right? But then he did follow it up with real action. He says, "You're not using our bases for this war." Good for him. So now Trump is furious. It was amazing during that press conference. He kept on bringing it up. This I can't believe the Spaniards, were just, and he said, well, they say we can't use our bases there. Fine. If we want to use them, we can. They can't do anything about it. But we're just going to cut off all trade. He went on and on. He ranted. He's furious. Somebody dared to oppose him, right? So anyway, everyone, kudos to Pedro Sanchez for that. But everybody else around him, everybody else, is constantly singing his praises, and that's what he hears, right? And they're feeding him with false information, and he is in that bubble. But at some point, though, he is going to, I think, become aware that he is facing an electoral disaster this fall. And that, I think, will have an effect on him. I think that really does matter to him. And then when his people can't say, well, can you get this tied up, wrap this up in the next 2 weeks or something? And they tell him, no, we can't. And he said, how long will it be? Well, we may need another 2 years or something. I don't know what they're going to say. But remember, that's what happened in the case of Yemen. It was actually, he thought it was going to be over in 4 weeks. And then it continued. And then he asked again, like, how long is this going to take? And they said to really, really, eliminate their offensive capabilities, it's going to be maybe 6 months. That's what they said. Perhaps that wasn't even true, but that's what they told him. And he decided he couldn't do that. So he called it off. And maybe that's what we'll see too. It's just you'll look at this electoral disaster and you'll find out, wait a second, I might still be fighting this war in November. I'm going to be wiped out. I got to do something now, just declare victory, and like he did in Yemen. That's the the thing that we can hope for.
I'm not hope. I don't think that's much of a chance there. I think he's in, and his only way out he's going to see is going to be the people, the sycophants around him, the Zionists around him that tell him, well, you just got to go. The Lindsey Graham's telling him, you just got to go harder. You got to go harder. That's why I feel like we have to hope for some type of impeachment process to happen rapidly. But who knows? I mean, everything's going to. Yeah, I mean, it's all breaking apart. We knew that the empire would fall. It's just amazing. It's just like how stupidly it fell. I just imagine that we could have been a little bit more intelligent about it. And it's just I'm just impressed by just the self damage the United States has inflicted upon itself over the past 3-4 years.
Right.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and the Europeans, it's interesting. Yeah, oil prices haven't risen as much as I would expect them. They've gone up some, but not all that much. But the gas prices, especially for Europe, are just going through the roof. And like I said, I just how idiotic. This is all self-harm. This was just, we're talking about, as Viktor Orban said, it's not like they shot themselves in the foot. They shot themselves in the lung.